Before Rome ruled the world, before Caesar crossed the Rubicon, before empires learned the meaning of fear, there was one name, short pause, a name that kings whispered in terror, a name carved into stone, blood, and fire. Alexander. Music slowly rises. At just 20 years old, he took a throne surrounded by enemies. By 30, he had shattered the greatest empire on earth. And by 32, he became immortal. Sound of marching armies, swords clashing faintly. They called him a conqueror, a warrior, a tyrant. But he believed he was more. Born under burning skies, raised on legends, taught to believe that the world itself was not enough. Beat with 40,000 men, he challenged millions. With courage alone, he broke armies that had never known defeat. He crossed deserts, burned cities, and stood at the edge of the known world. Music dropped suddenly, silence. He never lost a single battle, heavy impact sound. This is not just a story of war. This is the story of ambition without limits. Of a man who chased glory until the gods themselves took notice. Music explodes, choir plus drums, Alexander the Great. The man who conquered the world and dared to challenge destiny itself. Music fades out slowly.
Chapter 1. A Child Born of Fire. 356 BC. The Kingdom of Macedonia. On the night Alexander was born, the skies burned with strange signs. Lightning split the heavens. And far away, the temple of Artemis, one of the 7 wonders of the world, collapsed into flames. The priests were terrified. This child will set the world on fire. Alexander's mother, Queen Olympias, held her newborn son and whispered, "You are not meant to follow kings. You are meant to replace them." She told him stories, dangerous stories, that Zeus, king of the gods, had visited her, that Alexander carried divine blood. From that day on, Alexander never believed he was ordinary. Chapter 2. The Boy Who Feared Nothing. Alexander grew obsessed with greatness. While other boys played games, he trained with weapons. When his father, King Philip II, returned from war, Alexander would ask only one thing: "What cities did you conquer?" Philip was a warrior, but Alexander wanted more than victory. He wanted immortality. At age 13, his mind was forged by Aristotle, the greatest philosopher alive. Alexander learned of heroes, gods, and destiny. One story haunted him above all: Achilles of Troy. Alexander didn't want to live long. He wanted to live forever in memory. Then came Bucephalus, the black horse no man could ride. Soldiers failed, nobles failed. Alexander noticed the truth: the horse feared its shadow. He turned Bucephalus toward the sun, mounted him, and rode. Philip watched silently, then said, "Macedonia is too small for you, my son."
Chapter 3. Blood-crowned king, dark tense music. 336 BC. King Philip II was assassinated. Chaos followed. Greek cities rebelled. Generals questioned Alexander. Enemies sharpened their knives. Alexander was 20 years old. They thought him weak. They were wrong. He marched south like a storm. Thebes rebelled. Alexander erased it from the map. Men killed, women enslaved. The city burned. The message was clear: obey or be destroyed. Alexander was no longer a prince. He was king. Chapter 4. Against the King of Kings. Epic build-up music. Across the sea stood the greatest empire ever known. Persia, its ruler, King Darius III, the King of Kings. Persia had gold, elephants, massive armies. Alexander had 40,000 men and unbreakable belief. In 334 BC, Alexander crossed into Asia. There was no turning back. Battle of Granicus. At the river Granicus, the Persian army waited on the high bank. Alexander's generals urged caution. He ignored them. He led the charge himself, plunging his cavalry across the river and up the muddy bank straight into the heart of the enemy. A Persian axe nearly ended his life, but he was saved by a loyal friend. The ferocity of his attack shattered the Persian line. Victory was his. Battle of Issus at Issus. And Darius III himself led a gargantuan army. The King of Kings intended to crush the young Macedonian, but the battlefield was narrow, neutralizing Persia's numbers. Alexander saw his chance. He led his elite companion cavalry in a thunderous charge, aimed directly at Darius. Panic seized the Persian king. He turned his chariot and fled for his life, leaving his army to collapse in chaos. He abandoned everything: his command, his honor, and his own family. Alexander captured Darius's mother, wife, and children, and treated them like royalty. Because Alexander didn't want to rule by fear alone, he wanted loyalty. Chapter 5. The Siege That Shook the Sea. Heavy drums, relentless rhythm. The island city of Tyre defied him. A fortress on the sea, proud and untouchable, they mocked his army, believing their walls and their navy made them invincible. For 7 months, Alexander waged a war against the sea itself. 7 months of blood, hunger, and relentless rage, sound of crashing waves and construction. He built a road through the sea, a mole half a mile long constructed from timber and stone, inching closer to the defiant city under a hail of arrows. The Tyrians sent fire ships, destroying months of work. But Alexander did not relent. He rebuilt wider and stronger. His fleet, assembled from conquered cities, blockaded the island, strangling its supply lines. When the siege engines finally reached the walls, the end was brutal. When Tyre fell, the world understood something terrifying. There is no wall Alexander cannot break. Chapter 6. A God in Egypt. Music shifts to mystical, wondrous tones. In Egypt, there were no walls to break. He was welcomed not as a conqueror, but as a liberator, a pharaoh, a god. He journeyed deep into the forbidding Libyan desert, seeking the famed oracle of Siwa. The priest greeted him not as a visitor, but as the son of Amun, the king of the gods. Ethereal, quiet music. What did the oracle tell him in that sacred darkness? Alexander never said. The secret went with him to his grave. But when he returned, he was changed. He believed in his own divinity completely. On the coast, he founded a city in his own name, Alexandria, a beacon of knowledge, a city meant to outlive his entire empire. Chapter 7. The End of an Empire. Music becomes tense, epic, and driving. The Persian Empire was not yet dead. At Gaugamela, the Emperor Darius III gathered the largest army the world had ever seen. He chose the battlefield, a wide, flat plain perfect for his numbers. Alexander, heavily outnumbered, showed his genius. He advanced at an angle, baiting the Persian flank. When Darius charged, Alexander led his elite cavalry in an audacious strike directly at Darius himself. Climax of battle, shouting, clashing steel. Panic seized the Persian king. Darius fled. His army, leaderless, collapsed. The Achaemenid Empire, which had ruled for 2 centuries, shattered in a single day. Babylon opened its gates. Persepolis, the jewel of Persia, was his. Chapter 8. Beyond the known world. Music becomes exotic with Indian influences. But Alexander's ambition knew no borders. He pushed his weary army eastward into the mysterious land of India. At the river Hydaspes, he faced King Porus and an army of war elephants that terrified his horses. The battle was his hardest, most costly victory. He honored Porus, but his own men had reached their limit. At the banks of the next river, they refused to go further. They had marched to the edge of their world. For the first time, Alexander had to turn back. Conclusion: soft, melancholic music. He returned to Babylon, the new capital of a world he planned to unite. But the future he envisioned would never come. Before he could begin his next campaign, a sudden fever took him. The conqueror of the world, the man who believed he was a god, died at just 32 years old. His final words, a prophecy of the chaos to come, to the strongest.